Good morning, everybody. I hope all of you are enjoying this conference as much as I am. My name is Lavanya, and I'm a Senior Product Manager with SAS Data Governance. And today, I'm going to be talking about designing reliable data pipelines with SAS using semantic profiling, business rules, and also machine learning models. So let's get started. All right, why does this matter? Because compliance at scale cannot be done manually. And with the amount of data that we are all dealing with now in billions of rows of data, that manually tagging and applying regulations is no longer an option. So the stakes are high. Non-compliance data with GDPR, CCPA, and HIPAA regulations result in massive fines and severe reputational damage as well. And financial and operational risks are substantial. So manually identifying and tagging PII, PHI, and PHI data is very painful. And it's riddled with human errors, and it's incredibly costly to maintain at scale. So how are we solving this problem at SAS? We are taking the three-pillar approach here: know your data, govern your data, and enforce your rules. And how are we doing this in our SAS Wire ecosystem? We start with profiling the data with SAS Information Catalog. It is a product that's available in the Wire ecosystem. This product allows the users to profile data, and in addition to column statistics, data patterns, and character data and outlier detection, we also provide NLP semantic identification of columns. So we have built-in intelligence to help identify columns in your data. We also do keyword mining. And using this profile data, and now you can apply regulatory tags to it. What if your profiler only identified 60% of the data? What happens to the next 40%? Well, you can now apply business rules, and you can also build models. So you can create business rules definitions which use regular expression patterns, and we are providing a multi-provider architecture here. You can create business rules in Python which execute great expectation rules, and we also have SAS data steps. So here is an example where you can actually create a regular expression for identifying a diagnosis code in the US. And these rules, once created, can be reapplied and shared as well. So now that you have identified some of the columns using business rules, regular expressions, how about applying models? So Model Studio, that's the next level for identifying ambiguous data. And here in my demo examples, I'm building something that's fine-tuning the BERT model. And this actually helps identify, in my example, it's going to be the medical record number column. So this is an additional layer of modeling that I've been applying to the data pipeline. So now you're armed with using your SAS Information Catalog to identify and profile your data. And in addition, you can apply the business rules, and you can also apply modeling to this. So these three-pillar approach help you quickly identify and tag your data in an intelligent way. So, and the next step would be applying the governance policies. So classification policies, and if a column pattern matches social security regular expression, or if the column contains the SSN terms, and if it's identified with a high level of confidence, and then you can classify it as a personal data. And there are additional examples here as well. And once the data has been identified with a high level of confidence, using any of the three approaches that we provide, you can now tag the data. And here's how the final workflow looks like. And once the data is tagged, you can easily build reports and dashboards. So the data asset comes in, and you apply your profiler actions to it, and then you apply your business rules, and then you can do a policy match and bind it to the tags that we create, and then the policy is enforced, and you can build a fancy dashboard off of that. Sounds great? Okay, just how are we going to do it? What you're looking at is the profiling interface. It is SAS Information Catalog product, which is available in the SAS Wire ecosystem. It's part of the SAS Data Governance package. And you're profiling data with key metrics and semantic identification here in this screenshot. In a little while, I'll actually do a live demo where you can see all of this in action. And once the data is profiled and you take a look at the semantic classification column that's been identified, now you can build data pipelines using SAS Studio. These pipelines are flows that are reusable and that a user can build and share and save it and also schedule it. And so the data gets updated on a regular basis, so you can run the auto tagging pipeline on a regular basis and schedule it and retrieve and apply this on updated data. So here's just the first step where I'm using profiling the data, and you can use the public APIs available as well as the interface that's available to profile in the SAS Information Catalog product. The next step is to apply the business rules, and then you can also apply the models. And these flows and these models are already available, or you can build your own custom models in Studio or Model Studio as well. The next step is additional processing can be done based on what you want to actually result and show in your dashboards. This is a screenshot where you're showing regulatory tags being applied using Catalog's Tags API, and this shows up in your Information Catalog products. And last but not the least, everything ends in a dashboard so that a business user or the external users can share it, and you can take a look at what are the columns that couldn't be reviewed, what are the problems here, what is the confidence level with which these auto tagging data was identified. So this is the dashboard that looks and helps identify what were the columns that were assigned and what was the type of profiler that got applied to it. Was it identified based on the machine learning models, or was it identified based on the profilers, or was it identified based on the business rules that were executed? And now let's move on to the fun and exciting part, which is the demo. And I'm taking a chance here. This is the live demo. So let's get started here. So this is SAS Studio. Those who are familiar with it, it is available in our Avaya ecosystem, being able to develop code and flows. This shows the process of auto tagging very clearly, so I wanted to build the entire demo here in SAS Studio. So the first step here is posting the regulatory tags. This is right now using our Catalog Tags API, and the user can also supply these tags manually in our SAS Information Catalog product. To make it easy on us, I just ran the code here to run the APIs. The next step is I'm loading my machine learning model, and in this case, it is a fine-tuned machine learning model based on BERT, which is great for entity resolution and text classification. The machine learning model is now loaded in CAS. Now let's set up our sample data and to take a look at what the data has in it. So the data has been created. Let's take a look at what the data has. Here I have some hospital patients data that I'm wanted to profile and auto tag. So let's take a quick look at this data. This is synthetic data generated for the demo purposes, and this data really helps the user identify related to HIPAA and GDPR. So I just chose data which is related to hospital patients. So you have patient ID, MRN number, first name, last name, date of birth, social security number. There's some that's masked, some patterns in there, phone numbers, email address, city, state, zip code, diagnosis code, and so on. So as you can see, this data is a primary candidate for HIPAA and other regulatory information that needs to be tagged and masked and follow policies. So this data is now available, and the next step is to profile the data. Again, in this example, I'm using the Catalog's public API to profile the data, but we have an entire full-fledged application called SAS Information Catalog where the users can profile the data for per table basis or for an entire connection. And I'm going to flip over to SAS Information Catalog, and it is available as part of the Avaya ecosystem under Discover and Govern Data. It is Discover and Govern Data. So this is your product where the users can profile the data, build connections, and also do some intelligent semantic tagging and intelligent search for metadata. So let's take a look at the data that was profiled using the API in our studio. And this was just profiled live. Profiling a single table is very quick, very fast, so this just got done as I was talking. So this is the level of profiling metrics that we provide in our information catalog product. As you can see, information privacy has identified there's data which is sensitive, there's private columns that have been identified as private, and there are columns, a bunch of columns that could be a candidate for private data. And in addition, we also provide a lot of the data quality metrics that are available here, and we also provide data governance, which provides a classification for the data. And so here we can take a look at the social security number. It's been classified by our profiler, which ran live to show that it's a personal ID and information privacy of her private. The users can also supply business glossary terms, apply using business glossaries. So in this case, in my scenario, that I know that SSN is part of the HIPAA, and it's also part of the GDPR, and it's also part of the personal health identification. So I'm actually tagging my terms in the columns here. So the first step was to profile, and the profile results are visually presented in the SAS information catalog product. So let's jump back and continue on with our journey for auto classification. So we now profile the data, and what is it in this table is, this table contains the results of the profiler in a table format versus individually that was presented in catalog. So this contains the data for the profile results. And it has the data that is for all the profiled values in here. So, and you can take a look at information privacy settings that were identified. There are additional metrics for the profilers. And this is available for you to download and build reports as well. So now, the next step is a bit of post-processing. You just want to tag the source of the identification. In this case, all I'm doing is I'm checking if profile is the result of the tagging for the columns. The next step is to load my machine learning models and apply it. So in this case, I built the machine learning model for identifying medical record numbers. So in here, there's a step called clean data step, and it helps you identify the columns. In this case, I'm using my MRN column, and I'm using the text classification model here that I've built to identify my medical record number here. So this is the next step for auto classification. And after this, I'm applying business rules. So the columns that profiler couldn't identify or that stated as generic ID were like diagnosis code and a few others, which our intelligent profilers couldn't identify those. But we do have business rules that the users can build using regular expressions, which can be saved and reused. So the next step is to add the business rules into the mix. So this helps with the third layer of classification. So I'm going to execute that. And then here you're applying the machine learning models to this ecosystem. And last but not the least, I'm going to be generating the dashboard data. So once all of this executes, and let's run it live now. So I'm going to run the profiler. We read the step where we loaded the data. We took a look at it. And so the profiler completed. So the profile data is available now. And doing a bit of post-processing here just to check the source of the semantic intelligent layer. And that's available now. And this is just for the demo purposes to show how you can break it down, but you don't have to land the data, and this can be executed as a single flow. And now I'm doing the classification using my machine learning model. This will take slightly longer, and I don't know why that failed. That's because I have not loaded my model. Let's load the model into CAS again. The joy of doing demos live. That looks better. And that takes a slightly longer than Profiler because it's actually running a model. There you go. So the machine learning model step worked as well. And this is just going to create a data set for us for the machine learning model. And then we are doing the business rules. And then combining all this data for our VA dashboard. All these steps, this do is just collect the data from the machine learning, from the business rules, and the profiler, and helps you build the VA dashboard. All right, so now the last but not the least step is to take a look at the visual analytics product to build the VA dashboard, which provides the last step for a business user to take a look at how well did this auto classification work, and what are the problems, what are the columns we still couldn't identify, how do we tackle this issue. So this is a VA dashboard, and I built this VA dashboard using Copilot because I was not as familiar with building the dashboards, so you guys should definitely check it out. It's a fantastic Copilot available in VA as well. So here's how the same data that we pulled in and the reports just got built here. So you can take a look at what's in the review queue. So what is the data that was skipped and did not get identified by our entire process? So you can take a look at, hey, now I need to know why this didn't work, and then tag it. And you can also select it using the different regulatory tags, what's there in there. And in terms of regulatory coverage, you can build some interesting dashboards here. So what were the columns that got identified as well? And then what is the information privacy data? What does that look like with catalog uses? And you can also deep link into information catalog. So I can open the postal information into the postal code data, and it opens up in information catalog and can deep link into the columns and into the data that is in information catalog. All right, so we have done the last step of identifying and building the dashboards and also auto classification here. So, and information catalog also has a Copilot available, and so now I can ask, show me the columns containing HIPAA data. And it's going to pull up the table that contained the HIPAA data and doing a search query in here, and it's accurate right there. So it contains the HIPAA data that we tagged. So this concludes the demo for auto classification. What we did here is we built a workflow which starts with profiling the data using information catalog and build the layers on top of it, added the execution business rules and the machine learning models as you need to additionally classify it, and then build the VA dashboards as a final step. And this is available now using APIs, using the UIs that showed you, and this was a live demo, so it's as good as it gets right now here. So, any questions?
Come around.
And you can stop by our data management booth for additional information related to data management functionality and data governance.
I'll be right there.
I think at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that DataMaker created your data. Then you had in your output some missing values and things. So did DataMaker actually create that as well?
No, so I then changed the data for the demo purposes.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, there's color-coded output blocks on one of your later charts there. Is there meaning to that color coding on those blocks in VIA?
In one of the presentation slides? Oh, in the demo. In here. Yes, yeah, yeah. No, I think this just means that it is a clean data step that is available. So some of it is programming and some of it the color coded in here. So I just changed the color for the modeling layer. Yeah. Yeah, that is just to differentiate the different transformations. Yes.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much. And if you want the slides, they're also available in the app.
Cool. Thank you everybody for taking your time today.